So the topic today is a little twofold. We are seeing COVID affecting a lot of different parts of the hospital in different ways, but it is affecting research dollars, and it's also just affecting people that might be coming in to get screenings. So where would you like to start? Want to talk research dollars, or that concern that people aren't coming in to get these?
Let's start with our patients.
Okay, there we go. Wing it. Go ahead. Tell us.
All right.
Go for it.
So I think it's really important that patients out in Madison and across Wisconsin know that despite all of the concerns about COVID, the restrictions that have been put in place, that we are still taking care of cancer patients here at the Carbone Center. We're doing it in the safest, best way we can, and we're continuing to provide the world-class care that we do. And so one of the things that I think is really important for patients to know is that if they're having symptoms, if they're having problems, if they're unable to get cancer care someplace else, that we are here for them. They just need to call, reach out, and we're happy to set up telemedicine visits, in-person visits with appropriate safety precautions, whatever is needed for the care of those patients.
Anecdotally, I'm sure you can speak to it. I mean, you have seen a massive dip in maybe people that are seeking help now, right?
So one of the things that we're really seeing is that the number of newly diagnosed patients is starting to decrease. And I think that comes about because people are afraid to go to their doctors, or afraid to seek care that they might otherwise have sought care for. And we really want to encourage people to not be afraid to reach out to your healthcare provider if you have questions or concerns. There's a lot that we can do via phone call or telemedicine. There's a lot we can do in person as well if we need to. We're still, UW Health is increasing the number of procedures we're doing, trying to do so in a very safe way so that we can continue to care for all the COVID patients who may need it in the state. But we're also trying to reestablish all the normal things that patients come to the doctor for.
What type of dip would you say, just from your own perspective, are you kind of feeling that people that are not coming in for?
I think in our department we're seeing sort of two different things going on. One is that patients who it's safe to postpone their treatment, perhaps they've had surgery or they have a good alternative to coming to the hospital for treatment, we're waiting to deliver radiation to them, or we're waiting to do surgery on them. But patients who need an operation or who need radiation to treat or cure their cancer, we're able to do that still. I'd say that in the radiation oncology department, we're probably running around 80% of our normal number of patients at a time. And that probably is going to decrease as time goes on, because a lot of the patients that we take care of were diagnosed 6 months ago, 3 months ago, 2 months ago, and are now coming for radiation after getting chemotherapy or after having surgery. So where I think we're going to see some of that fall off is patients who would have been diagnosed in April or in late March and haven't sought care yet because of concerns about COVID.
Yeah, I mean, and that's going to create a real crisis for these for their health care, essentially. I mean, because they're not going to be screened early.
Yeah, and I think we're prepared that when sort of the doors open back up, when we've gotten past this, whatever time that is, that there's going to be more patients coming, patients who haven't had all of their necessary care because of the complexities of telemedicine and the complexities of keeping everybody as safe as possible, are going to be coming in the doors. And I think we're expecting and we're willing to work harder to make sure that everybody gets the care in the most timely fashion that they can.
No doubt about it. I'm trying to think if there's anything else I should be bothering you about with that question. What does your heart tell you about this deep concern? I'm just trying to get your empathy here. You're probably beyond worried about these patients that will come in with really advanced stage problems.
I think there's two issues that are a concern. One is that We know that patients who are older have a worse time with COVID. They have more complications and worse outcomes. And that describes a lot of our cancer patients. But we also know that getting timely care for your cancer is important, and that earlier diagnosis and earlier care leads to better outcomes, leads to less intensive therapy. And so we want to encourage people to acknowledge their concern about COVID, but reach out to us. We're here for you. We're here to help take care of you. We're here to help navigate the risks and benefits of coming for care now versus coming for care later versus getting some of your treatment at home if that's possible.
So you guys have been creative about it, no doubt. Research-wise, dollars are drying up pretty quickly, right? I mean, so not only are we worried about the patients, but we're worried about the novel, groundbreaking ways that we can hopefully save them better.
I think from a research standpoint, there's two aspects. There's clinical research, which we've essentially halted altogether, and with the hope of protecting our research staff, protecting our patients. Most clinical trials that we run involve patients interacting with a number of different people that they might not have to interact with for their standard care. And so while we're still doing the standard care, we're halting and pausing that cancer research efforts. We're starting to open that back up as we've seen a plateau, and to do so in a safe and effective way. But there are patients who have clinical trial options for them who we aren't able to offer that right now because of our concern for their safety and the safety of our staff, and the possibility that our staff would leave UW, go home or into their community and potentially spread this to other people. We want to avoid all of that.
Yeah, how difficult is that for you to not be able to enroll some of your patients in things that you know could potentially help them, and you can't? Your hands are tied.
It's a concern, and it's a concern as well because it means that these trials ultimately will enroll enough patients in these trials, will complete the studies, but it means that that's going to be 3 months later than it would have been, or 6 months later than it would have been. And that means that we won't have the best treatments or we won't know about the best treatments as early as we might have otherwise. And ultimately, our goal is to improve the cancer care, improve the outcomes for our patients. And this is making us pause, and we're going to go full force at that when we can.
Absolutely, you are. And because of COVID, conferences are canceled. Those moments where you're able to meet with other prestigious researchers, and that's got to make things even more difficult for you guys trying to make these advancements.
Yeah, some of the, this weekend I was supposed to be heading to San Diego for the American Association for Cancer Research International Conference. That conference was, the in-person portion of that conference was canceled. There'll be a much smaller conference that'll be, broadcast so that some of the results that would have been presented are able to be presented now. There's hope that there may be a smaller conference late in the summer, although frankly I'm a little doubtful that may happen. The largest cancer conference in the world, the American Society for Clinical Oncology, ASCO, has their annual meeting at the end of May. That's been canceled or that's been transitioned to a virtual conference where people will still be giving talks, they'll still be presenting the results of their research, but it'll be from afar. And the biggest thing that does is it eliminates sort of the chance encounters, the walking down the hallway, seeing somebody who just presented their work and having a discussion about it, potentially leading in new directions. Those interactions, those collaborations are a lot harder to generate virtually than they are in person.
I believe it's got to be just, really, really difficult to find those collaborations over Zoom, and make those interactions and those conversations that you might have very easily. So that's very difficult. when it comes to your research dollars and what it's looking like for the future, you had mentioned that things are starting to turn around in some ways, that you're able to do a little bit more lab research. But I'm sure that some of that you just can't do because of COVID risks, right?
Yeah, I mean, about a month ago, we essentially totally shuttered our lab. Most labs here on campus are down to just essential personnel and essential experiments. And what that really means is that we're taking care of animal studies that have been ongoing for months at a time. We're taking care of long-term experiments that there's no way to pause. And other than that, the people in my lab are all working from home. We're trying to keep them busy. They're trying to contribute and participate in research, but it's not the same as being face-to-face and in person. We have our weekly lab meetings by WebEx, and we talk, face-to-face via a video conference on a regular basis, but the progress is definitely slower than it would have been otherwise. And in my lab, I'd estimate that when we're ultimately able to get back up and running, it'll probably be 2, 3, or 4 months before things are back to where they were before. In terms of our productivity, our efforts, it just takes time to get things going again after a hiatus.
And toot your own horn, talk a little bit about, not going in depth on any of this, but, for a third grader to understand, what are you researching right now that you'd like to be able to move much faster on, but you can't?
Yeah, so I treat patients with head and neck cancers, and our research is aimed at patients with head and neck cancers. These are serious cancers. The treatments we have can be disfiguring. They can be leave patients with long-term side effects, and so we're trying to come up with better treatments, ways to make the cancer respond better to the treatments we have, ways to deal with the side effects that we cause through better medicine. And these delays mean that those advances are 6 months down the road or 5 months down the road longer than they would have been. And that means that patients are suffering for that much longer than they might otherwise be.
And also, I would imagine that there's a lot less that's getting published in this journal right here. So
publication is really interesting. There are, I think, a lot of people who are writing like crazy at home because they're not at work. And so from a journal standpoint, we see a large increase in the number of submissions. I think where we'll see an effect is 6 months, a year from now, because a lot of publications, the research happens today, but the publication doesn't happen for a year or 18 months even. And so I think we'll see a downturn a year and a half from now, a year from now, more so than we see it now.
But maybe that's the silver lining. People are maybe working even harder on these theoretical ideas that they can, at least in the meantime, put out there and feel positive that they're making a difference.
There are a lot of people working very hard, regardless of where they're working. There are people here on this campus who have transitioned their lab or pivoted their lab to focus on better treatments, better diagnosis of COVID. And so, not everything is bleak. We're continuing to do great work. We're continuing to think and to plan and to write grants, submit grants, and do the best we can to continue to advance the cancer care and find better treatments for our patients.
How worried, though, are you about those grants not being there anymore with everything going on?
Well, I hope that what this whole pandemic will have taught us is that we need to invest in basic science research. We need to invest in clinical trials. We need to invest in preventative medicine. We need to invest in the effort that goes in to make us faster, more adept at dealing with whatever comes down the pipelines next. And it's really through basic science research, through translational research, that we're able to do that. And in the U.S., the vast majority of that research is funded by the federal government, by the NIH, by the National Science Foundation, and I hope that this is going to cause our population, our senators, our representatives, to say we need to invest more in research in this country than we have been. We've really let it slide over the past 25 years, and we need to bulk that up. And hopefully that'll allow us to have better treatments for the next pandemic, to have better treatments for the cancer patients we see, better treatments for heart disease and diabetes.
Yeah, I have so many
Little shots.
Should I?
Feel free. Is this one that you?
The counter as I was walking down here. Although there is one.
Time. Take a look over it. You're like, I'm hungry, Catherine. Get this over with quickly.
That's right.
I'll probably. This together. I mean, he's working like a dog every day, so I'm just like, yep, you know, you go to work, you do your thing. I used to get mad when he'd be like, oh, you know, I want to go play my video. It's
Yeah.
fine.
I've been trying to run every day. I'm hurt.
It's perfect for this little thing that we're doing. And you're going to be like, yeah, this looks really good, Catherine.
I'm sure I've seen your work.
Publication. Okay, yeah.
Yeah, we
Oh,
use this
that's
space
cool.
So much.
It's beautiful. Wendy, I forgot to ask, how long have you been with UW now?
10 years.
A decade.
I'm much more interested in a page of text.
They are indeed.
Yeah, I'm sad that we weren't able.
What would be fun to do and something that I can't cook at home? And I was like, yeah,
That's awesome.
dinner. So yeah, I know. And I feel bad because his birthday also fell the same. Glamour shots. Ask if this board can be kept somewhere, because I mean, this is like, it is so beautiful. Yeah. I'll be like, can we just go to the board? Like, if we populated this room for something else at that point, but yeah.
I have meat.
And the lights, too. The lights are what really makes it amazing. Cold, yeah.
You just touched that thing. I mean, this was like ever so gently. I moved it.
Your other question, he said he'll pass.
Okay. Well,
But if you want, he'll see if anyone else.
yeah, absolutely. I just think it'd be nice to have, even in the anonymity of it, just to say,
Yeah.
hey, this is happening, and it's going to be great for you. test. Ugh, that's not going to be fun at all. I'm not looking forward to any of that right now. This is
gives me a
excellent. I'm
chance.
getting all the video.
Yeah.
He was that young varsity, like 4 years old. Oh, okay. I was gonna say, is he got in high school? Yeah. He got played pretty consistently. We lived in the Bay Area.
Heard